It is our pleasure to have here today the creator and executive producer of Family Ties, and the creator of and executive producer of Spin City, and Alex Keaton, and the star of Spin City, Gary David Goldberg and Michael J. Fox. Let's begin by asking the question, when did the two of you decide to collaborate again, and why?
What's your version?
My version is actually accurate, which is probably in February, right? In February of this year, Michael had called just on another matter, and we were talking about this and that, and he said, told me the script was coming in for a show that he was going to be doing at Disney.
It's considering. Yeah.
Right, that he was thinking of doing, just waiting for the script, and then he was going to decide. And you know, we talked this and that, how are the kids, and then I hung up, and that sort of part of me goes, God, why? Michael's coming back to television, and I was really jealous and happy for him because he seemed excited at the time. And but you know, I was feeling a little like that. Why wasn't that me? You know, how come why was, you know, that would be too much fun. And then when the script came in, it wasn't what he had in fact been promised, and so he was able to just, you know, just say, well, that's not what we agreed on, I'm not going to do it. And coincidentally, like 2 nights later, I was having dinner with Jeffrey Katzenberg, and Katzenberg said, you know, Mike didn't like that script, he's not going to do it. And I said, God, gee, I said, wow, wouldn't it be great to work with Mike again, you know? Next thing I know, I was on a plane going to New York that Jeffrey had chartered, and that was it. And we came together in New York, and we laid out some areas that I was hoping Michael would be interested in, and he was, and then that was the beginning of it. So that was February.
Yeah, it was really, nothing else was ever going to happen but this. You know, that became very clear as soon as we got together, that any other plans that we might have made, or any other kind of thoughts we had in our head, were not what was going to happen. This was going to happen, and I just firmly believe that. I was in New Zealand doing a film, and I was away from my family, and I was watching documentaries about, you know, the mating habits of Kiwis, and I was out of my mind. You know, I literally watched a 90-minute documentary on New Zealand television about tin. I was nuts.
It's not in our collection, I should tell you.
I'm sure you don't have it. So it's excellent tin. So people were sending me shows to watch, American television. I hadn't watched a lot of television in the last 7 years. And they were sending me this Chandling show, and they were sending me Seinfeld and Friends and all these shows I hadn't watched. And I just said, wow. 2 things came to me. One was, man, this is great. There's great writing happening in television that isn't happening in film. There are great, exciting people involved in the medium, and I could still do that. And the other thing that occurred to me was what a great life it would be for my family and for me. And it was wasted on me when I was young. You know, kind of a regular job with weekends and stuff. And so I started to toy with the idea, and the producer had approached me, and I was talking to him, and Jeffrey had approached me separately too, but I didn't want to kind of be out there saying, you know, I'm on the market or whatever, and so I followed this other thing, and then talked to Jeffrey and said, I owe these people that I said I'd consider first, my attention first, and then like Gary said, it came in and it wasn't right. Jeffrey hooked me up with Gary right away. Gary came out, said he had this idea. We met at the Four Seasons Hotel, and Gary and this young writer, Billy Lawrence, I'm sure you'll hear more about later. And I walked in a room with these guys, and immediately when I was with Gary, I was just home again. And he started to talk about this idea for this character, and I realized that nobody knows what I do and how I do it and where it comes from better than him, because he in so many ways invented it. And I just I just knew it was going to happen. I just knew immediately it was going to happen. And the answer to your question that you asked rhetorically, you know, why after 7 years would we want to do it again? I think it's because it's been 7 years. You know, we did it for 7 years, and then there was 7 years of knowing what that was like, you know. And we were driving here today, we just said, is this incredible to be given this again, to be able to do this together again?
First, I wouldn't be doing that with anyone else except Michael. And part of the process and what the kind of overall thing about here is partners. I don't know. It's just when I would write for Michael, and I'd be writing a line that wasn't a funny line, and I would just start laughing because I would envision more or less what he was going to do with it when he got it. And then I would come there and he would do what I had hoped he would do, what I had dreamed he would do, and then a little bit more. But what happens in this world is there is a joy available in this world that is just not available in ordinary life. And it's the creative joy, for sure, and it's the joy of the community that gets created, the world that you now live in, which in many ways, what's lucky for us is we are two working class kids who were close with our families, who had very tough times for a very long time, and who know the difference between what's good and what's not good. And so basically the worst day of our life is most people in their life their best day. And so there's very few actors that you could work with who are not only the quality of performer, but the quality of the human being that you get to be with. So for me, it's just a gift.
No, I'm verklempt again.
That'd be enough of that, yeah.
Well, I mean, you both went off after the series to do film. You did some series afterwards, and I remember having a lunch with you, and you were never going to go back to television, certainly not series television, and it is a grind, and you went off to film, and here you are again. I mean, what is it that series television gives the two of you?
Well, for me, it's the thing that it always comes to for me beyond. Again, I can't imagine it happening with anyone else, and it just wouldn't be as much fun because I wouldn't know every week that I'm going to have it. That I'm going to be given the things that Gary, through his imagination, through his talent, gives me to do, and the absurd humor that has this underlying pathos and humanity, and which I think Gary is a master at. I just don't know anyone else who does it. But every Friday night, we put 150 people in this warehouse in the Chelsea Piers, and they go out, and whatever our labor is, it's completed by these people, and they come in and they inform the piece in a way that we couldn't do on our own. And I love it. I mean, I just love that so much. I get so excited when those people come. And I get so excited, when we went to do the pilot, when we walked in the stage, we were shooting the pilot, the first thing I did was run up to the audience, run up to where they were going to put the audience, checked out the seats and said, we go to series, we're going to get theater seats, and what's their view and how can they see. And every week we make them 21-minute movie. Well, 21:53, is it?
21:57.
Oh, man. We wish it was.
It used to be 22.
Oh, man. Boy, do we miss that minute. But we get to do that every week, and there's a sense of completion and a sense of accomplishment, and the joy is they're so happy to be there, thankfully, and we're so happy to be in front of them. And we have that every week, that sense of accomplishment and that sense of having done something that you don't get in film. I mean, I go in the door on some Tuesday in March, and one side of it, and then with film, and then some Wednesday in June, I come out the other side of the door, and I say something, and it all gets put together by editors somewhere, and then it gets marketed, and focus groups talk about it, and then it gets edited down to nothing, and then. Karen James, kicks the crap out of it, and then, and then I get, and then I get to go on a press tour, and try to explain, what I did. Boy, I'm so done with it. I just got so tired of it. If I can get 150 people in a room, and I can get, Gary Goldberg writing for me, I can feel what it's like to enjoy entertaining again and to enjoy acting again, and that's what I have every week.
The process is totally collaborative, which is also the fun, for someone in my position, which is basically you get to just keep working and trying to make it better. We write the script, we read it on Monday, we have overall notes, and Michael will talk about what works for him, what's working for his character, what the arc of the show is, what's bothering him, ways that it can be made better, and then they put it on their feet. And the thing that's nice is it doesn't stall while we're moving along. He's always exploring and discovering and just trying to find the ways to help. And then at the end of Monday, we'll stay and do a rewrite, and then we come back Tuesday, and again, the same process. And each time we're making it better, and at the end of each run-through, hopefully making it better, we're making it different. And we just go and say, what's working now? What was funny? What were you trying to accomplish? And the thing that's good about Mike is very, very smart person, very smart actor, great instincts, and also able to then articulate what's missing. And so it then becomes easier and easier and easier to try to come in a way that's interesting and exciting. What was hard for me with a movie, writing and directing movies, is that is much more about the hardware. You know, it's about very specific shots. You don't have the ability to, and locations that you're there for one day only. And basically, my process is I need to look at it and I change it and look at it and find things that he made work that I didn't think were going to work, other things that surprise you because they don't work, and boom, you can change it. And he's the kind of guy, you can give him stuff Friday before you're going on. If it's funnier and better, he'll make it work, you know, so we don't have to worry. We can always keep trying to make it better, and that's really fun for me.
And it'll always get better. We also have one of the things that's really exciting too about doing this the second time together is that we made a conscious decision to have a different experience and to do a different thing and to do a different form. You know, we're shooting film now, and we used to shoot video, and now, you know, we used to always say we do like now 12, 14, 15 scenes. I don't know, we do so much now. And we used to say with Family Ties, it was 3 scenes, act break, 3 scenes, Alex apologizes. That's the show, you know.
But this is a tribute to Michael, because when we came back, he said, look, I want to prove myself to a whole new generation of people. We did what we did. I want to do something different. And this is very rare for an actor, a star actor. He said, I just don't want to be with people for whom we've already hit the game-winning home run. You know, he said, I want to start over. We've got to start at zero. That's what's going to make this exciting. And I want to be great in a different way. So basically, we want to be great. The hard thing with being great, or trying to be great, trying to be as good as you can be, is it doesn't come when you want it to come. You can say, well, why is it coming Thursday? You know, we shoot tomorrow. Now I figured it out. You know, so but we're you know, consciously trying to have a totally different experience. What Michael was alluding to is true, which is that we know how lucky we are now. Do you know what I mean? So we're not wasting any time. I had him as a young man, and the success and the thrill of the surprise of it, you know. And now going in, we know how precious this is, and we don't waste time.
Well, let's pick up on that, and then I'll take some questions from the audience. But let's go back to the first collaboration and the casting of Michael and Family Ties, and legend has it that he wasn't your first choice.
Well, it was interesting, this process, and we're talking about 1982 at the time, right? And Matthew Broderick was the first person that I saw before Michael, and he had just come out of high school. I don't even think he had done anything. And we were excited about Matthew. He was absolutely the first person we saw. And we were making the deal, and something changed, and his father became ill, sadly, and subsequently died, and then that fell apart. And I think Michael was literally the next person I saw. And I'm very emotional, you know, about the casting, and I'm sure I was still, you know, my heart was elsewhere. And Judith Weiner, who was the casting director, and so Michael had made some choices as an actor that were, I think, not exactly right for who Alex Keaton was eventually going to become, you know. And so I had said to Judith Weiner, it's not Michael Fox. It's not Michael Fox. And Judith Weiner, from the first day, said, it's Michael Fox. She said, this is a gigantic mistake. I said, Judith, I believe I created the character, and I think I know just a little bit about who this is supposed to be. And then we go on to see 4,000 people who aren't right. And Judith and I were doing another thing that was well received in New York and Washington. And I called her to tell her how excited I was and how people had responded to the cast and all. She said, you're in a good mood. I said, I'm in a great mood. She said, do you do me a favor? I said, anything. I love you. She said, when you come back, would you see Michael Fox again? And I said, I'll see you, Judith, only because I love you, because I am so sure he is not the guy. And so we saw Michael one more time. He came in the second time. He was fabulous. He left, and I said to her, why don't you tell me about this guy? Get him a pen. You know, I mean, how smart do you have to be? So that was the beginning.
And then we went to Network after that, and they weren't crazy about the idea either. And I'll never forget being in this room when an actor goes to the network, you know, once the producers and the writers, everybody wants him, then he has to go get approved by the network. And it's a situation not dissimilar to this. I mean, we walk in a room, and there's literally this many people, and they all have the same tie and jacket. and they're, you know, kind of looking at you, and so Brandon Tartikoff was there, and he was in the center, and he said, so what have you done? So I thought, okay, you know, don't be an idiot. Name all the NBC things you've done. So I said, okay, well, I was in Here's Boomer. I did the pilot for Lewis's of Luckenbach, which was Gabe Kaplan's comeback vehicle. And I did Teachers Only with Lynn Redgrave, and a pilot for that. And Gary goes, get to the hits. Get to the hits. So I knew, and then I knew Gary was on my side. And yeah, my experience was I was so completely broke. I mean, it was like a joke. I had an apartment with no furniture because I had sold it. I had no telephone. I was playing Duck the Landlord, United Group of Friends, and we were playing Duck the Landlord, you know. Luckily, we had different rent collection days, so we could be at different people's places on different days. And so when we finally got it, I was negotiating the deal from a payphone, and I would say, you know, call me, you know, call me. I'll be in around 2, whatever, and we'll talk about it. And I'd you know run down to the Pioneer Chicken at San Vicente in Barrington, right across from the Green Tea and the Leaf, which used to be an all-American burger, and I do it and took the bus to shooting of the pilot. But I really needed the job really badly, and I just needed it, and so I was willing to do anything anything that Gary wanted me to do. But he once I could feel he was on board, then I just knew I'd walked into a hug. I mean, I just knew that this was a great thing and this was going to change my life, and I knew when we did the pilot.
Talk about where you got the idea for Spin City.
It was very funny when we were talking about collaborating again. I think there was certainly an element of Michael's nervousness, you know, about whether I was a guy who was from another world and not going to be able to really access what was going on here, or be willing to, you know, because of the style I like.
I had never had any doubt. You could do whatever you wanted to.
I like to write a certain way, and you know, and you could line up, you know, the universe on the other side. If it's something that I want to do, I feel comfortable with it, I'd like to do it that way. And so I had a collaborator, and we talked about the edginess of the show and what it was going to be like. And then I went off to go to the bathroom for a second, and Mike said to Bill, he goes, you think Gary really wants to do this kind of edgy show? You know, and so Bill said to me, you know, Gary doesn't hear that well anymore, and so we'll just do what we want, you know what I mean, and it'll be fine, you know. So Bill Lawrence is this very, very, very talented man who co-created the show. When the opportunity to work with Michael again surfaced, you know, I talked to Bill what ideas and different. We had a couple of areas, but the main thing was to get him in a place where he could be on the edge, a man always, you know, in conflict with himself, you know, and what his better judgments might be, and also in an area where we could show his intelligence, you know. I mean, you just can't put him in a situation where that's not, you know, available to you, and also where he could be a funny guy. You know, the thing about Alex Keaton, the thing about Mike Flaherty, their worldview is so specific, what their need is so strong, that anyone who comes into their world is potentially an obstacle. So I think like a terrible mistake would have been to make him a family guy with a small family and, you know, stuff that would soften the edges, because nobody plays the edge as well as Michael, you know.
I remember talking to people about, you know, people mention ideas, and it's ironic because I have 3 kids, and it's the center of my universe, my family, and people would say, you know, a great show would be, you know, with you with a couple of kids, and I'd say, you know, the problem is then you got to worry about those kids every week, because I can't be who I find it entertaining to be, and have that be someone you want to see be in charge of small children. I automatically feel limited, you know. It's like he's got to feed these children at some point, so he can't go to the weird places that I hope he'll be able to go. So it was so weird, though. You know, when Gary and Billy and I got together, and I went back and I said to my wife Tracy, I said, you know, this feels like it. I think they got it. And like 3 days later, they went up to Vermont. 3 days later, they faxed me the first act of Spin City. And it was coming off my fax machine, and I'd read a page and handed it to Tracy, and it was this weird syncopated laughter, because I would read something and laugh and hand it to her, and then I'd be laughing at the next page, and she'd be laughing at the last page. And she's smarter than me and faster reader, so we finished about the same time. And we both looked at each other, and Tracy just said, "This is it. This so it. And it was just great. It was one of those things where everything lined up because you go, wow, I found something I really want to do, and it's Gary. You know, and it's Gary. And that's the thing that keeps hitting me. We can talk forever about and trust me, I'm not a cosmic, you know, tarot cardy kind of guy, but this isn't a mistake, you know. It's cool. We had 7 years. We get to go off into the wilderness, and then we come back, and it's us again, and we do what we love to do. There's another thing that we haven't really talked about, but you know, Gary and I also have a, you know, we're kind of him much more successful than me, but we're both frustrated jocks, and I think we have a real competitive thing too. And you know, Friday night we got to do the show. It's you get the big win. You know, it's give me the ball. I want the ball. Give me the ball. And Gary knows when to give me the ball. You know, and it's just such a great feeling. It's just so.
In the early years of Family Ties, before the game, before the show,
There you go.
we were so crazy. I mean, we would actually we do everything but butting heads. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I still do. You know, in my room I still play Iggy Pop. You know, just before I go, I play Lust for Life, and I crank it up and bounce around.
Yeah, it was fun. And we wrote the script in 4 days, the pilot. And it was funny because we were up in Vermont, as Michael was saying. I was writing with Bill in one room, and after we'd been there we wrote without moving for about 18 hours. And I know because I got up and there was a stack of notes from my wife. It said, going out for a walk, back from the walk, going to work out, back from working out. You obviously don't care. And then I kind of collected them at the end of the night. But yeah, I remember very clearly faxing off the stuff from Boston. Was actually my wife we were just following her around on business she was doing and writing in the hotel and fax Mike the pages, and I went out to dinner and I came back and there was this just lovely message from the operator. So Mr. Fox called. He loved the script. So we're very excited. Michael is fearless as an actor and doesn't need any protection. Do you know what I mean? So he's not a guy who's going to worry if someone else is funnier in a scene. So going into anything, I never have to worry about that. He wants to be working with the best actors, bring them on, give them the jokes, tie me up, and then we'll see who gets the laughs, you know, basically. So I know also you have to bring a certain quality of actor to this party. You can't bring shallow actors. He'll blow them off the screen. They'll look silly, and and he won't get back what he needs. The other great thing that's changed since our first meeting is we don't have to go to the network anymore. We didn't have to go to anybody. So there was no discussion other than with ourselves and with each other about who we wanted, and we wanted
Jimmy J.J. Walker as Carter.
Well, I mean that's never ending. I mean that is not far from the truth. But when they make little suggestions, but we never bring anyone there anymore. And basically, we just talked about people we liked, we wanted to be in business with, and
being here was an amazing resource. Being able to being here on a weekly basis. I mean, the actors that are available here are amazing. Not to say that they're not great actors in Los Angeles. Obviously, there are, but the talent pool here is so rich, and people that people in America aren't familiar with. People have come from the stage, and you know, our cast. When we first started, when we were doing the pilot, we'd meet at the end of the day, and he'd come down from the writing room with all these young actors, and he would say, "These kids are amazing. These writers are amazing." And I would say, "These actors, you know," and we'd we'd have arguments over whose group was better. On a weekly basis, and I still do it. I'll come off from doing a scene in front of an audience on a Friday night, and I'll be, you know, and I'll see Richard Kind, you know, and pull him aside and just say, "Can you believe these people? Can you believe, you know, Sandy Gaberman or you know, Connie Britton? They're so good." And they're everyone, to lapse back into sports metaphors, you know, every one of these actors, you know, if you put something in their wheelhouse, it's just gone. They just nail it. And Gary's right. I mean, I get competitive with what I expect from myself, and I do kind of think of it as a game sometimes. You know, in terms of I want to win. I want to give that audience the best show that I can, and I know when it feels right. I'm not competitive with the people that I work with. I want them all to do great, but I feel it if they're afraid, and none of these people are afraid. I had a nice moment on Friday night. Gaberman, who's this young actor, and he went to Juilliard and all this stuff. So we always have a lot of conversations about that. You know, learned this from Juilliard. Like I learned this from Gilligan's Island. So. But he came up to me the other day and he was all excited and he goes, "I did that thing that you do." And I said, "What thing did I do?" And he goes, you know that thing. And we had a joke in the show that hasn't been on yet, but when I'm talking about divorce and I'm saying, blah blah blah. And there's some people that make a mockery of marriage, but then again, if we didn't have those people, there'd be no country music. And there's a little pause there, and I have more speech to give. So I don't know. I just do this thing when I do that, where I'll take it out here and I'll think about that and wait for the laugh to die or whatever, and then I'll come back and finish what I'm doing. And I don't think about that. But Gaberman says, so that thing that you do, what the country music thing, that thing. He said, "I just did it in the scene that I did." And I said, "Oh, you went to the place. You go to the place." And he said, "What's the place?" I said, "The place is the waiting room that you go to and you wait, because you can't do anything else." And that's what's good. This is suspended animation in comedy acting, because you have to let the audience have that moment, but there's nothing else you can do. And the minute you do something else, you dissipate that moment. So you have to pull back from reality. So anyway, to talk to him about it and to see him get it, and to then see him turn around and slam dunk with it in the next scene, is so exciting. It's been exciting for me to play this Mike Flaherty guy, who is has this relationship with this group of people, who is in a bit of a position of authority with them, but is their peer, and is someone who has a big workload, and they all kind of know that about him. It's very similar to my relationship with this cast. And it's as affectionate. I just love these actors so much. I'm so excited for them. I'm proud of them on a weekly basis. I see them grow. And they have such specific skills too. Like Alan Ruck, who plays Stuart. I call him the king of the drive-bys, because he just drives by and drops a bomb. He just drives by, drops a bomb, and keeps moving, and he kills with it. Richard Kind is the Michael Jordan, is the Dennis Rodman of our group. He goes to the boards very aggressively. He comes out and he's just out there with it. Connie does that reflective thing where she goes, she can kind of get lost in the world, and you don't feel like she's pulling away from you. You feel like she's drawing you in. Boatman, who has made such amazing choices to play this character, this gay activist character, doesn't do a femme job, doesn't do all that stupid, stupid stuff. Does really smart choices, and has invented things. We already have this thing where he just looks at his watch all the time. And it's so specific, and people see it now and they laugh at that and they relate to it before they even know what it is. And I could go through everybody in the cast, but Bostwick is, struggles and is finding so many interesting things about this guy that could be two-dimensional, but he's really, we've decided in the show now that he's part Chippewa, because of his wisdom. He's such a sage. But I've kind of gone off on this, but just because I just love these actors so much, I can't believe we found them, and I love working with them.
Shooting in New York is very expensive, and most shows are shot in Los Angeles, and so it becomes prohibitive. We, by design, wanted to come and do it here for many reasons. Primarily Michael really wanted to shoot here and be near the family, and it seemed that this idea, when we came up with it, really demanded being here. We have a great director of photography, Dickie Quinlan, who's willing to put up with what it is. You have a mayor now who's very helpful to the film community, and a commissioner, Pat Scott, who's very helpful. So that that really helps and makes it possible.
I think it's also, I think that beyond the expense, what's starting to happen now, it's really exciting. Gary tells a story that kind of, the first time he told me, I kind of got flushed, but he said he remembered being a kid in Brooklyn and coming and watching Jackie Gleason, coming and watching kinescoping. What did they do there? What was it?
They didn't even have that.
They bang it into rock with chisel. But and I love the idea now that that we're here, and Letterman's here, and Rosie O'Donnell's here, and Cosby's in Astoria, and maybe that'll happen again, and maybe it'll start to get. I mean, it makes sense that film is primarily an outdoor medium, and I can see why they shoot a lot of film in California where it's climate controlled to a certain extent. But I mean, you can make, New York is television city, I mean, and I love that we do this here. And we can also pop outside. This morning we shot some stuff down in the Village, riding around in a limousine, and it's great, you don't, it looks like you shoot out the window and it's okay, because there's somebody beating on somebody or something. It's not going to look inconsistent.
And the crews are great.
Oh, the crew.
Oh, we have a crew. I mean, no one had ever done this before. Actually, no one has done multiple camera film in New York. There's been some videotape and there's been one camera, but no one has done exactly this. And the crew that we got, wow, they came from other mediums, but they're just extraordinary.
We had to do it in a week. We didn't know if we'd allotted all kinds of time to allow for their inexperience, and they, said, what? It's easy. Point it over here. There's no, there he is. I got him.